What's up guys, Douglas from Dougsterbob.com here, and today I'm going to be taking a deep dive and looking at the 2022 Kink launch. Now, as you guys know, my goal here at Dougsterbob.com is to grow the sport and help 1 million people get into BMX. I understand how frustrating it is looking through hundreds of different bikes, hundreds of different specs, and hundreds of different qualities. So I'm going to take a look at the launch. We're going to talk about the quality, the specs. We're going to see potential issues that I see with it, and really see if it's the right bike for you. So let's get right into the video. Now the Kink launch is an entry-level BMX bike, and what that means is it means that it has lower quality parts at a lower price point. So it'll allow new people to get into the sport who aren't riding at a serious level and who are not particularly breaking any parts. It comes in 3 different colors. It comes in a galaxy green, a matte iridescent black, and a matte storm gray. These colors are really sick, and Kink always hits the nail on the head when making their colorways because these are really cool options. Now, one thing that's not so cool, I'll talk about it in a little bit, is the price. This is a $409 bike. Now, last year it was mid $300, and for that price, it was a pretty fair price for the value that you're getting. However, because of the price increases in all of the BMX bikes due to COVID and the shipping wars and everything like that, this bike's a little bit more expensive. Now, at the end, I'll talk about if I would recommend it, and this is solely based on value. So when I talk about that, I'm looking at the quality that you get and the price that you pay, and I'm figuring out if it's a good deal. And that's at the end, like I said. But let's roll right into the quality of the bike. The Kink launch is, like I said, it's an entry-level bike, and that means it's going to come with a high tensile steel frame, high tensile steel forks, high tensile steel bars. These are not as strong as chromoly. These parts are a lot weaker. They're also a lot cheaper. So what happens with high tensile steel is as you're starting to spin, as you're starting to do big drops and big gaps, is the amount of impact that those parts take cause it to bend. So your frame's going to bend over time, your bars are going to bend over time, your forks are going to bend over time. That's okay if you're a 100-pound, really small rider who's not doing too much. But if you're a guy like me, 200 plus pounds, I will destroy that bike, especially taking it off of a stair set. So you got to keep that in mind. This is a lower quality bike. The rims on this bike are single wall, meaning they're not double wall. Double wall is the best option. The single wall rims bend as they take impact. So when you start learning 180s, when you start learning 360s, you're spinning and the ground is putting counter pressure on that wheel, which is going to cause it to bend over time. Again, if you're not spinning, you don't weigh very much, you don't really need to worry about that. This bike does not come with pegs, so if you expect to grind right out of the box, you're going to need to pick up some pegs separately with it, and it weighs 26 pounds and 4 ounces. This is a pretty light weight for this bike, and that's because it's designed for smaller riders. Smaller riders are going to have an easier time tossing it around and kind of progressing on it than they would on a really tall, really heavy bike. Speaking of smaller riders, let's talk about the geometry. Now, the geometry is really compact, and again, it's for smaller riders. It only comes in a 20.25 inch top tube. So you need to Google Dougsterbob size guide and see if this is the right top tube size for you. Bikes range in a ton of different top tube size options, and getting the right top tube size is really the most important thing that you can do on your BMX journey. If you get the wrong top tube size, you're really just you're setting yourself up for failure because the bike's going to be a lot harder to control. So Google Dougsterbob size guide, make sure that 20.25 is the correct size for you. Now it has a longer 13.25 inch chainstay. This is going to make spins a little bit more sluggish, a little bit harder to do, and manuals harder to initiate. This longer back end is designed so that newer riders can feel comfortable on the bike. They don't want to design something that's really snappy, really responsive, and is going to be ultimately hard to control. So that's why it's a 13.25 inch chainstay. The head tube angle is 75 degrees. This is average. Some bikes go 75.5, some bikes go 74.5. The 75 degrees average, it's not going to affect the riding too much. And the last thing in the geometry is the standover height, which is 8.75. Most bikes are around a 9-inch standover height, so this is a little bit smaller, but it's not enough to notice a difference. The standover height's going to affect grabbing your seat for toboggans, pinching your knees for bar spins, getting your leg over the crossbar for cans, but mostly it's just an aesthetic thing, and it's going to look a little bit lower than most bikes by 1/4 of an inch. Now let's talk about the Dougsterbob scores. This is a scoring system that I created to rank bikes based on how good they are for park, street, dirt, how good their quality is. And then you can take a look at that and you can say, well, I'm a street rider. I want to look at bikes that scored high in street. And I just want a really good quality bike. So then you can look at bikes that scored really high in quality. If you want this score sheet, you can compare over 80 different bikes completely free. The link's in the description. Just click it, put in your email address, and then I will send you the link to the score sheet. It's updated every time I add a new bike, so you'll never need to get an updated version, and it's just always there. Super helpful resource that I built for you guys. So check that out. Anyway, the Launch scored a 1 in street. It doesn't have pegs, it doesn't have a free coaster, and to be quite honest, the quality isn't good enough to withstand big drops and big gaps. Being able to do big gaps and big drops is super important for any serious street rider, and the Launch will not be able to handle it. In the park section, it scored a 3. This is because you can put a gyro on this bike. The gyro brake system makes tail whips and bar spins a lot easier. A lot of street riders like to ride it. It has holes drilled for the gyro, but it's not going to come with the gyro. It's not super park specific, but the smaller standover and the shorter top tube is going to make it a little more responsive for doing those technical street tricks. A 3 is not great, and this isn't a park specific bike. In the dirt section, it also scored a 3. The longer chainstay helps it here because you do want to be able to be controlled. You do want to be able to be flowy on the dirt. So having a longer chainstay is going to make the bike feel a lot more stable when riding dirt. This is especially good for pump tracks. This is a good pump track bike. I know a lot of you guys like to hop on the pump tracks and pump around. It's a really good exercise. So it's a 3 in the dirt. It's not great for anything. It's a pretty low level, well-rounded bike. You can ride a little bit of street if you put pegs on it. You can ride a little bit of park if you put a gyro on it and better park tires. You could ride a little bit of dirt if you put a bigger sprocket on it and some better dirt tires. There's a lot of options, but they all require some upgrades. The quality score is a 1.5. We're gonna round that up to a 2. This bike, like I said, high tensile steel. It has a semi-sealed back wheel, an unsealed front wheel. It's not the best quality at all. It's a very entry-level quality, and that's how they were able to achieve that $409 price point. Low quality bike, that's why it only scored a 2. So what are some similar options to this bike? Well, you could look at something like the We the People Nova. It's gonna be a little bit more expensive, but the quality is really not much better. You could also look at the Sunday Blueprint. It has a lot more color options and some top tube variations. So the Sunday Blueprint does not only come in a 20.25 like the Kink Launch, it has a lot of different options. So check out those 2 other bikes if you're looking at the Launch before you decide on the Launch, because they might be better for you. I have a review on both of those options. Just search it on my channel, or I'll put the link in the description. Make sure you watch those before you make your decision so you don't make the wrong decision. What are the potential issues that I see with the Launch? Well, the biggest thing that I would see with the Launch is the low quality bike. I see somebody weighing 180, 200 pounds getting back into BMX and getting on the Kink Launch because it's a really good price. And then sadly, over time, they break the bike. That's happened to me when I was younger. I was probably closer to 180 pounds throughout middle school, and I would get high tensile steel bikes and they wouldn't last me. Unfortunately, I had no idea what the difference was. I didn't know what chromoly was. I didn't know there was different options. I just bought a bike that looked cool and then it didn't last. And I don't want you guys to make that mistake. I want to help you out. So that's the main potential issue that I see with the Launch. Who is the Launch for? Well, the Kink Launch is going to be for someone who is the right size for a 20.25 inch top tube. Make sure you check that out, check the size guide, make sure that's right for you. But this person is not dead set on street, park, or dirt. The person kind of likes to ride all 3 and hasn't decided on the ultimate discipline yet. You don't ever have to decide, but some people come into the sport knowing that they want to be a park rider no matter what. But the person who gets the Launch is someone who's not too sure, and they like to be able to enjoy all 3 different things or at least test it out. Now the real question, would I recommend the Kink Launch? And I'm gonna say yes, but this isn't like I'm not jumping for joy. I had a guy ask me on one of my Friday night lives, hey, Should I get the Kink Launch or should I get the Kink Whip? And I'm like, bro, if you have that choice, go with the Kink Whip. The Kink Launch is not very good quality and it's actually pretty expensive. Now, the problem here is I can't say that it's a bad deal because most of the similar quality bikes are a little bit more expensive. The Nova and the Blueprint are both more expensive than this bike and they're similar quality. However, just in general, I do think that $409 is a lot for a high tensile steel bike that's not going to last. So if you have any room in your budget and you can afford the Kink Gap or the Kink Whip or the Sunday X or even the Sunday Forecaster, go with those because they're going to be a lot better for you. If $409 is literally all you have and you can't afford it, this is the best priced bike with this kind of quality, but I would recommend spending a little bit extra and getting something better. Now, if you want to buy the Kink Whip, I'm going to put a link to that in the description, but I'll also put a link to the Kink Launch in case you decided that this is the best bike for you. It could be, you're your own person, you got to make that decision. So I'm going to put that link in the description or up here on the screen. If you decide to buy it through that link, you're going to help me out a lot because I'm going to probably link it to Dan's Comp. They always have really low prices and they offer like free shipping on orders over 100. It's a crazy good company that we work together to grow BMX. So if you click that link in the description, I'll make a couple dollars off of the sale and it'll really help out the channel. So do that if you think this is the right bike for you. If not, I'm going to throw up on the end screen 2 other bike reviews that I think you would enjoy that are a little bit better than this bike. So make sure you check those out. And if you still have no idea which bike is right for you, I have a free BMX bike recommendation. All you have to do is click the link in the description, put in your name, your height, your skill level, your budget, and I'll look at that information and I'll send you back a PDF with 3 bikes that I think are perfect for you. That way you don't have to scour the internet looking for bikes, banging your head on the wall. I'll do it for you and I'll tell you 3 bikes that I think are great for you. So make sure you do that too. And if you want to buy this I Heart BMX shirt, the link's in the description. This is from my Dougsterbob score, or my Dougsterbob store, not Dougsterbob score. And yeah, get the shirt and have a good rest of your day.